Hey, it's Chris. What are you talking about? Crowdfunding is coming. Well, I mean, if you're tuning in this video, well, crowdfunding is coming, except it's just not winter like my shirt says. But big news, first off, Aeon's End didn't launch this week. They got delayed a week. So you get to hear me ramble and rave about it tomorrow on the news and upcoming hotness crowdfunding video that we're putting out. That being said, apart from that, roundup. Let's go. First up, Song of Ice and Fire. I always want to say Song of Fire and Ice. Anyway, tactics. Compatible with their previous game, but what do you need to know about this new one? Song of Ice and Fire here essentially is your skirmish style hex-based 7x7 grid where you are drafting based on the amount of money that is going to be present in each of the said setup scenarios that you are given, and also given a variable length of the game that you can adjust it to as well. In this core pledge, you are getting two factions, the Targaryens and the Baratheons, and that's what you need to know. You can also, with what's revealed so far, I imagine in 2 or 3 weeks we'll have even more revealed at this point. Is it even that long? No, I imagine in a week and a half you will have more factions revealed at this point, maybe a few new twists on the mechanisms. But if you really want to pay $160 for a freaking awesome looking dragon, you can. However, we'll talk about why I'm going to give them a little kudos, as much as I hate the freaking Galactus giant Cthulhu route that they've gone now with another crowdfunding campaign. Spoilers, just because you can buy the gameplay content separately, which is the first time they've done this, so I'm going to give them kudos for. But what do you have actually going on with this? You get the little unlocks, whichever that is going to be, however much at the end. They haven't shown anything yet at this point, but then you're also going to get a little terrain thing. And so that's sort of the mix and match, if you will. A lot of the terrain is going to be putting tokens down, creating the terrain that's not already on these maps in the first place. And so you're going to be drafting one of 3 sets of figures to your side on a game-by-game basis. You're going to have heroes, you get one of them. Champions, which will do cool abilities. And then your basic cannon fodder, right? Your soldiers. And so how many you draft, you have to spend as much of your money as you can. But that money that's left over, it appears, I'm a little vague on this from the rule book. You have gold, silver, and copper. Copper is also the currency in which you activate your characters on a turn-by-turn basis. And you have to go through and you have to activate as many of your characters on a 1-by-1-by-1 back and forth until somebody can't go or somebody chooses not to go, because you can pass, but then you can only pass if you have less characters left to activate than your opponent. So if you have more, you are forced to go. Well, it's also going to be, like a lot of these skirmish games, it's going to be heavily die dependent. And you're going to be having willpower as well as defense as well as health. Health being obviously, well, exactly what you would expect. But the willpower being sort of a skills check, if you will. The defense being the ability to block. And it's based on not a sum total of these dice rolls. It's on an individual did I roll high enough basis on a D10. D10 being obviously 10 natural and having different consequences. There's a few different status effects that are listed as well. 2, I believe, in the base game as a whole. And we're going to see what else they've got in store for us before the end comes around. Skirmish setup, here you go. Here are the 2 factions, the awesome looking miniatures, fantastic, never have any issues with that. How different and dynamic are some of these individual, characters or soldiers and everything else that goes along with that. It's interesting that you have Eddard Stark, though, there as a champion, as well as Roose Bolton. Yeah, I mean, they're definitely mixing here with the Baratheons, so okay, I guess we're running out of named characters, so maybe we won't have a ton of other factions. Anyway, well, we'll see. Here's all the other deluxifications. Here's this as well with the fantastic freaking dragon where I have the high ground is actually going to matter. And the dragon is going to bring it down with you. So it's your arena, your tile-based situations, like I said, 7-on-7. And then down here, the kudos that I'm going to give is they're separating out, if you just want the gameplay scenario for this thing and not the massivature that's going to take up way too much space and just clearly collect dust in a collection like mine, because I suck at painting and would never try and paint and screw something like that up. And also, it would never leave this room, so I wouldn't really be a showpiece either way. A couple previews if you want all that sort of thing, and it's going to cost you $260, which again, though, if you look at this, again, this is why wording always matters in these campaigns, folks. This is not everything. This is clearly not going to be everything. I mean, one, if you didn't know that from a CMON campaign, well, I'm sorry for you in the first place, but this doesn't say all in. This doesn't say everything. This doesn't say anything along those lines. So you're already talking $260 plus probably the 3 or 4 expansions that are going to have along the way. So do you want to pay less than $500? Good luck if you want the all in. And that's sort of what you're looking at. Now, again, if you're looking at this at all, this, unless you're like outside of North America, would make no sense whatsoever, because for $20 more, well, you're getting these 2 other boxes. So that'd be what they've got going on. And here's some extra little bauble to go with it. Everything you want to get separately as well. I think this was the follow little gift, and then this was the print components I was just talking about. So if you don't want to pay the 180, it is here separately, then you can also, well, I guess it is 180 up there too, if I did the math correctly, and you could do the $25 here for that, which is good, but I guess so, right? Dice rolling, strategy, tactics, you know, and like in a few of the other campaigns this week, they give us a rule book. It's not, you know, the most complete, because I'm guessing, again, if there's a bunch of expansion content, we're not going to have some of that. And, you know, with this skirmish model of things, they basically use X's and O's and dots. And so if it's like dotted versus crossed, it's an open versus a closed, meaning you can go into it. But then like if it's a circle versus a, you know, a square or something along those lines, I forget exactly what it is now. I've read too many rule books. It blocks line of sight as well. So you have basically symbols that will tell you whether or not you can go in the square, symbols whether or not they're going to block the line of sight, and then they can be combined to create any one of those 4 possible combinations. You want to see a bunch of cool, you know, painted miniatures, there you go as well. And that's everything. Sometime, you know, I would argue middle of 2025 if you're lucky. Although if you look at the pledge, if we pull it up here, it actually says February 2025. So do you actually believe that you're going to have this in a year? Anyway, I am still waiting for my Marvel United multiverse at this point. So, I mean, all being said, it looks better than I was expecting. But after having read the rules, I went from really being concerned that I was going to have FOMO on this one to kind of just feeling like, I'm okay. Peace out. See you later, right? Not the skirmish style for me, but if it is for you, check it out. Next up, one of the biggest winners of the week, one of the ones that came out of nowhere, again, is Ludos, their 4-game collection out of Asia. And we have 4 games coming from, as they say here, Japan, Mongolia, Nepal, and Korea. By the way, I'm losing my voice in case I didn't already say that. And so what you've got going on here is 2-player games. They're going to be short, abstract in nature, and a little bit lighter overall. I'm very familiar with Bagchal, as I mentioned, because I backed their original campaign to get that. And again, transparency being what it is, I don't like it whatsoever. It just fell flat. It felt very uneven. It was not very balanced for my liking. And $39 gets you all 4 of them. You have your combination of Shogi, Jarmo, Bagchal, and Yut, each offering slightly different nuances of an abstract-like nature. Shogi, essentially, you have 18 samurai on a side. You move them in sort of a, I believe, horizontal or vertical direction. You can jump one piece on the side of the board that you're going to. You're slowly going to be trying to trap one of the opponents or many of the opponent's pieces between 2 of yours to eliminate them, or also at the same time trying to get yours close together so that you can get 5 in a row tic-tac-toe style in order to win. Jarmo is essentially what you're doing is you've got a Git style board here with a little bit of checkers, or if you will, and you're slowly moving your pieces across, capturing empty pieces, and then redeploying captured pieces in order to win the game. Bagchal is a combination of, well, just goats and tigers going head to head, laying them down one at a time, and then once they're all out, manipulating them around in a grid. And you know what? I'm sure this game is old and we just played it wrong in one of those situations, but it fell flat for me. And so, you know, with any of these now, I'm going to be a little bit more cautious. And then Yut here is a sort of horse maneuvering game, if you will. You have sticks actually that you're using instead of dice, and these sticks have you know, cut in half essentially, and one side is flat and one side is curved, as a stick would be, right, if you cut it, you know, horizontally like that. And then depending on how many sides of each you roll, it corresponds essentially to a number, and then that number allows you to potentially either place your horse in a certain slot or move at a certain number of slots in order to capture your opponent's horses. And that's it. Rulebooks are out there. You got a little bit of everything else to go along with it as you're used to, and $13 a piece if you want to get them separately. There you go. I like the concept. I like the idea. It's a good project, but again, it's probably an easy pass for me just because the other one fell flat. And so it'd be more of a try before I buy, and more than anything else at this point. Next up, Stefan Feld collection, Nassau, Kathmandu. Number 7 and number 8 in the collection. Somehow already this has almost $250,000, which I'm flabbergasted in. The only thing I can really think of is either people really, really love what these are doing, and these are doing differently than previous Feldian games. They're Feldian lovers as a whole, or they're in for a penny, in for a pound, and they've already got the other collections and they feel like they need to match it out. The other interesting thing is that I did not see at first, but I noticed as I was reviewing this page earlier, is that if you go down far enough here, actually, right here, you can buy all 10 of these games for $1,000, folks. Do you ever want to spend $1,000 on board games on a, non-Kingdom Death Monster project? Well, there you go. You can do that right now, and you can get all these super deluxeified. And guess what? All those limited number exclusives that they said previously, don't worry, you can get it right here too. Maybe even if you're lucky, you can get 100 that should have actually been 100 from the first campaign. So I'm not really sure how that would work as a whole, right? Not going to think about that one too much because I'm probably not going to like the answer. 90 to 120 minutes for Nassau. Nassau is, I believe, the pirate-based one that I talked about last week, where you have the two phases. Phase one is essentially what you're doing is you're buffing your pirate crew. You're getting all the weapons, crew, equipment that you need in order to move around. You have to place your pirates in these alleys to move them through, and then you have to, essentially move your character the other way in order to get whatever else they want. So a slightly clever, unique mechanism there. You're going to be gathering all of these in the first round in order to make your pirate ship bigger, better, and badder, and then you fight an opponent, earn bounty points, and conquer, essentially, as the second side of things. But if you actually want to know any more details up in this 4-round game, you're going to have to watch the preview, or actually, you're better off probably watching Gaming Rules' tutorial, because there's no rulebook on the page for either of these games, which, again, if you're giving them a rulebook to be able to teach it, I would expect that you could put one on the page in the first place. And you get a bunch of deluxeifications, a sleeve, some deluxe components, some coins, and like a super Feldian awesome backer coin as well. And that's what you're going to get with that. And then we get finally down here to Kathmandu, which again is about the same game length heaviness in that sense. You get to see what's in it before learning about how to play it. And what you're doing here is you have to choose several of your dice to utilize. Your die not only allows you to get a resource of the same color, but the pips that are on it, you have to move your yak accordingly. You're flipping these yak tiles, getting points, going to temples, making offerings based on the resources you have, and then going back to these cities and trading the goods in order to re-equip later and gather animals and trade them along with everything else you're going to be doing. Again, the animation here on the page doesn't give me the best example. If you really want to know, you're probably going to have to go to Slickerdrip's playthrough more than anything else. Because again, at the time of me filming this, no rulebooks. No rulebooks, no rulebooks. So that's fine, I guess. But this is a ton of money. 130 for a game that you don't know anything about, that you can't have a rulebook out that gives you one playthrough. So I guess I can't really recommend it at this point. I just don't think they're for me. Feld games just aren't for me, and I'm okay with that. I made my peace with that. But if you're a Feldian lover, maybe check it out. Next up, Heart of Crown's 10th anniversary. I love me some anime, but this is not in my realm of things. But what you're doing essentially is you're taking a Dominion spin on recruiting one of 7 princesses that are going to be available from, like, I believe, one of 2 market/supplies that are available on a turn-by-turn basis, using your coins to not only recruit the princesses, which are going to give you sort of a strategy or a bonus as you go along, but then recruiting domains to their kingdom in order to score points, and you need 20 kingdom points in order to win the game as a whole. They're giving you a new layout, as well as a new foil collection is really the reason to back it right now. They have a preemptive sort of draft rulebook here if you want to check it out if you're interested, and then they also give you some online access in addition. It's going to cost you $50 if you want to get the new edition, and if you want to get the expansion with it along with some early access and the foil edition, it's going to be about $100, and that's a lot of money. But you can clearly say that a lot of people like this anime sort of vibe in the first place, especially from the aesthetic side. So that's why they've got, $50,000 here in the first day or two. So check it out, Heart of Crown. 25th Century Games is import collection. Now, I have some mixed feelings about this one, right? Like, I knew Hamster Roll was coming. I didn't remember what else was going along with it, but the other one is Run, 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 where it's like a cooperative, like moving, exploring, cooperative-based exploration game with tiles. And you're getting wooden promos essentially with the other one, Hamster Roll, because what Hamster Roll is it's a dexterity-based spinning game where you basically are the wooden pieces emulating a hamster in the middle of its wheel. And as you roll this wheel, you have to make sure that your pieces don't fall off. And if your pieces fall off, well, you lose. So that's essentially what you get. You get a little bit of bonus here along with this, but it's either up to a 4-player game, 2-on-2 with teams, or 3 where you each get your own unique set. And you just spin it and go. The rulebook is there. There's a few comments in addition here. The pledge levels are there. And this is where I really kind of have the exception, right? Like, this is their import collection, right? And they talk about some of these other ones down here. And I really like this. I was really looking forward to Jekyll and Hyde Scotland Yard, but they're bundling it with the other Mandu game, Dracula versus Van Helsing. And if you want to get one of these, they allow you to do it down here in the add-ons, and they can say, it's going to be fully customizable here, but none of the individual prices are on the page. And there's not even any information on some of these other games like Circus Flocati, Jalape No, Moho, Penguin Party, Tasso Banana, Vampire Queen. We know about Witchcraft. But again, like 25th Century Games, Chad, I know you put out a good product, man. Give us some more information on the page. You know, I don't see any information about like the Mandu games at all on this. And, you know, if you want to entice people, just a little bit more on there to say, okay, well, hey guys, here's a little bit more info on these. Like if you know them like I do, because I was like stalking SN lists and stalking Gen Con, whatever, UK Game Expo lists, like that's where I found out about a couple of these. But if you're not, there's no info on this to, you know, really say, okay, do I really want this game? And I think there's got some cool products there in the first place. So that's a little bit disappointing there as a whole. And again, down here, I mean, it's shipping, but the problem is it's only North America. So if you're outside of North America, well, I mean, well, half these games are probably available to you anyway in Europe. But if they're not, if you're somewhere else in the world, then you're kind of in between. So I'm sorry. Next up, we have the trio from Pencil City, Sunrise, Snowfall, and Floriferous. And what we've got going on here is 3 separate games with 3 separate types of mechanisms with a little bit of overlay and some very nice aesthetic to go along with it. You're going to be making pottery, you're going to be exploring the woods, as well as strolling through a garden, and that's what you've got going on. Sunrise in the Studio is where you're making these pottery pieces essentially with a different style of drafting, because it's a little bit of simultaneous play draft set collection to go along with it, because what you're doing is you have 3 different styles that you're going to be potentially taking on a turn-by-turn basis when you have your hand of cards, and you have to use one of those different work styles in order to determine how you're going to draft. One of them, for example, makes you or allows you to keep 3 and then like pass 1. Another style allows you to keep 1, pass 1, but discard 2, and so on and so forth. So you get a little bit of how you're going to be rearranging those, and then you simultaneously play them in a set collection manner with the resources that are indicated on them in order to build your pottery in the first place. That is the first whole game. You're getting mini expansions with all 3 of these games, though, as a point of note of why you may be getting it on crowdfunding, hopefully from a little bit of a price reduction standpoint. The second one here is going to be a little bit more of a solo tile laying game where you're simply just placing these little mini cards, tiles, if you will, expanding the forest. But what you're also going to be doing is you're making tools, because there are going to be certain things that are going to get your way, like fallen trees, that you're going to have to use these tool cards in order to achieve a further winter stroll in the first place. And so how well you can do will determine what your end game solo point score is, and then you get ranked on, well, how good you are, just like you with a lot of solo games in that sense. Last one up here, Floriferous, the Pocket Edition. And what you've got going on again here is you're going to be strolling through the lanes, picking cards up, putting them face down in front of you, making set collections as you move your little gardener across the path of cards in the first place. You get the early spring mini expansion, and you can, well, get it right now if you want. They give you a little bit of a brief overview here, but thankfully the rules are actually all on the pages as well. However, truth be told, these rule books are 20, 20, and 16 pages each. So although these seem a little bit lighter, they are text-heavy rule books with examples ad nauseum, though. So that does make them a little bit longer, but clear-cut in terms of what you're doing if you'd like to get more of a feel of what you're sort of trying to accomplish on a turn-by-turn basis here. And so that's why you're going to get it. Plenty of previews. Pencil City, they've got their 3 games here. They're killing it as a small box, sort of almost Button Shy-esque vibe going on there as well. And this is really a popular thing, especially these small box games in general. If you give people a little reason to go in, well, they seem to be supported well. So $27,000, almost $30,000 here at the beginning of the campaign. There you go. Next up, we're hopping over to Gamefound again. We're going back to Conservas from Salt and Pepper Games, challenging solo bag building, though, from Scott Alms. Bag building, folks. Over 12 rounds, what we're going to be doing is you're simply drawing these tokens in order to either fill your boat, manage your resources, or repopulate the ocean. And the more you take out of the ocean, the less there is to breed for more future rounds in order to, well, sustain it, but also achieve sort of an engine build up, if you will, more than anything else. And so what you've got going on here is you're tinning them, producing, and trying to manage all in one. Like I mentioned, 5 tokens, placing them in the boat, open water, or as you fill them up, you go back to the land, discard the tokens to get upgrades, one-time abilities, special abilities, or resources to get new boats for your fleet in the first place. Based on how many you leave, though, that's what spawns. Pay your upkeep, start a new round. Last round, you're done. That's the game. Seems kind of cool. Seems kind of light. I'm impressed by it. If I was a solo gamer, I'd be looking at this one a lot heavier. They're going to have some unlocks here, it looks like. So check in like in a week or 2 when it actually is all shown out there. Shipping is going to be, that's not great shipping. Because then you're talking about almost like 45 bucks for this solo game. And this is a light style. I mean, again, it's probably not going to be widely available. Salt and Pepper is not widely available, I think, in retail from North America. So if you want to wait and, you know, see where things are at in 3.5 weeks, you can kind of see how much other stuff there is incentive-wise to get it. Just like the other small box games we've been talking about with the smaller companies, which one, how, where you draw the line and where someone else draws the line, well, make it up for yourself, but find something right, but don't get them all because, well, you don't need that many, folks. Now, the other big surprise of the week, Trailblazer, the Arizona Trail, a sequel over here from Mariposa Games. And this is, well, a dedicated game from the actual trail in Arizona. We're going about 800 miles in 100-mile increments over 8 rounds as you're slowly moving across various paths that are able to be traversed with one of 4 different actions of traveling or traversing across them. And what you're going to be doing is sort of a site collection, resource management, a little bit of worker placement, along with polyomino laying on your board for bonuses along many tracks, many times, many ways, as you go through these 8 different rounds. 1 to 4 players and a little bit of everything going on there. They really break it down. Again, this is probably one of the more detailed Euros I've seen, but it doesn't actually seem that heavy, although the 20-page rulebook is definitely a little bit misleading because, again, just like earlier, it is a little bit text dense. So if you want to get a good feel of it, they really run you through what you're going to be doing and going across, including everything from terrain tracks, picking up an extra worker along the way, the passages you're going to be traversing, the resources that you may need to go through them or to pick up as you pass through, as well as the flora and the fauna that you're going to be acquiring in order to polyomino place on your own player board in the end. They've got a few deluxeifications here with the deluxe edition, including some miniatures if you really enjoy that thing, as well as some stretch goals here, adding some more deluxeified aesthetically pleasing elements for the game as a whole. There's a solo mode as well, and they run you through a little bit of how to play here with a few other videos if you'd like to see it in action. So again, I think this is doing something kind of cool looking. I would say that you may need to look at one of the videos though, because the rulebook, as well laid out as it is, it's a lot of information. And so seeing it in action, this is one of those where reading versus video, for me, I need a little bit more video in order to give you a more complete aspect and nuance of whether or not you're going to like it in that sense. And $50 is going to be the retail version. It's going to be $70 plus shipping, $90 for a deluxe, middleweight Euro, if you will, right now. So again, a lot of indie stuff this week, a lot of small stuff that you're not going to see elsewhere if it doesn't get funded here. And well, this one's already at 3 times its funding goal. So if you want to support Trailblazer, the Arizona Trail, check it out. Next up, Knee Deep in Hexes, 2-player skirmish. This is sort of your RTS, your real-time strategy, PC, mobile, console game, if you will, taken to the tabletop setting. Because what you've got going on here is you've got a deck of slightly asymmetric 25 cards that are going to have 16 specific cards that are unique to your faction, as well as 9 neutral cards, which are going to be the same for both decks. And you're going to be taking them, drawing them, and utilizing them in sort of a build, deploy, attack play style. And that's where it reminds you of, potentially, as I saw one comparison being made, StarCraft, if you will. It's kind of got the StarCraft on the tabletop vibe as you're using these little miniatures and utilizing the companions' asymmetric abilities at the beginning of the game to form your strategy to conquer your opponent and to take out their base. And you want an expansion to go along with it with extra content, a little mini mercenary expansion, new vehicles, new decks, new companions as a whole. I mean, yeah, you're getting what you want if you want more of it. And so we're going to see what this does. I mean, again, it's already almost at $60,000, and this is doing something slightly different. It offers several different game modes, as it says here. It also offers you options to not only use the pre-constructed deck, but also a few advanced variant deck building situations if you would prefer to do so in that sense. It also allows for map building and drafting planetary cards, and as well as placing these terrain tiles on the map to customize it in the first place. Several preview how to play videos here if you want to see some gameplay. The rulebook, again, is probably one of the shorter ones overall, and it gives you a little glimpse here in terms of the action phases, what you're actually going to be doing. Like I said, deploying, moving, building, playing, drawing, recycling, and you're just going along these hex-based situations in order to take your opponent out. So this is going to be more like a skirmish than anything else. And so how you utilize those cards, how you're moving across this battle in these phases is really going to be the big determinant of more of a strategic approach with a little bit of tactician nature going along with it. It shows you how you're going to be resolving each of these areas, how you're going to be ending the game, and everything else you need to know. Basically, again, like I said, blow up your opponent's headquarters. Make it across, blow them up, win. A few stretch goals here as well that they're hitting, and mostly just a little bit of slight upgrades from a quality of life standpoint and production standpoint. So real indie game, again, probably not going to be widely available. So if you're going to be looking at anything at this point, check it out if you want. And what is the price point as a whole? So I know, well, you know, base pledge is still going to cost you about $60. So, I mean, that's not inexpensive. If you want everything here, you're looking at, nearly $100 and probably $50+. So that's a very expensive penny. And so unless you really love it and you really love what it's doing, even though it looks like it's doing something slightly different, something slightly similar from what we've seen, you know what? There's knee deep in Hexes. Check it out. Now, you may be remembering this one, and I talked about it, I believe, last year, and this was over on Gamefound previously, Conquest Princess. The weird thing is that they're back over on Kickstarter, and I don't believe that the base game is actually fulfilled, but here we are back with an expansion. And I saw it on social media, a couple of people posting about it, you know, trying to, you know, give it some support and just, you know, show some support for it overall, which is absolutely fine. But the weird thing is on this page, they don't actually address why the base game hasn't been delivered. They said previously that they ran into some issues, but they don't really say exactly what they are down here, right? A series of unfortunate events outside of their control. So that's essentially all the information you're going to get right now, at least. So again, not that that's necessarily a big issue, but we've seen a lot of campaigns have those. So do you feel comfortable backing a base game for an expansion that hasn't delivered in a cooperative, spacefaring, fancy princess-esque vibe? Again, super indie here with bag building power-ups and cooperative missions that you're going to be going up against the enemy with. Now, this is offering you 4 new scenarios. I'm assuming this is what this is, as well as 52 cards, a new story, and, well, more stuff. But again, if you don't have your base game yet, and the base game was not inexpensive in the first place with all of these little upgrades, how comfortable are you backing expansion as much as you may think you like it? I've had plenty of games like this, including something like Tokyo Sidekick that I regret getting an expansion with, let alone the base game in the first place. So I'm a little trepidatious when I see this nowadays as well. So how are you playing though? Essentially, getting your agent, moving them around, getting your objectives, bag building, using those tokens to your advantage, and activating in a pandemic-esque style what you're going to be having to deal with in a power-up situation, as well as bringing your armor upgrades and everything else that you need in order to defeat the enemies. To be honest with you guys, I don't get quite how to exactly play this game. Even with the rules, it's a very dense read this week as a whole, and this one is no exception. And so it has the pandemic-esque vibe with your bag building as you're going through these various quests, and you're going to be pulling from a shared bag that is going to be able to be manipulated by your powers, abilities, etc., that are going to be available to you. And the main thing is that as you pull from the bag, it's going to, you know, change the odds of you either hitting or missing going forward, right? So if you pull more hits, there's going to be less hits in the bags. It's going to be harder to hit the next time. Or if you miss, it's going to be, you know, better chances, essentially, right? You're pulling the misses out of the bag, and you're going to be upgrading everything along the way here, as you can see. Your armors, your core, your weapons, your co-pilots, your, you know, distribution in the bags as a whole. And this is, to be clear, a mini expansion for the game in the first place. And so do you like that? They are closing everything down, including late pledging, after this campaign is over. And so if you have any interest in this in the first place, check it out. But again, I mean, it's hard to say if you're going to like it right now. Well, you just don't know. I just, you know, have very, you know, trepidatious feelings from a consumer. I'm not saying, you know, don't back these small indie companies, but it's just like, okay, well, I have to look out for me too at some point. And if I get too many games that just don't work at all for me, well, then you end up with this sort of thing. And well, you don't want to be one of those people, but you know, they're doing something slightly different. And what will the final product look like with this? So again, the pledge levels for the mini expansion is $15. And if you want to get the base game with the expansion here, you can get it for $90. And this is supposed to be delivered before the end of the year, which, you know, there's no timetable set on the Gamefound page when I was just looking about when delivery is going to be, and, you know, obviously no production yet. I have a little bit of trepidation thinking this is going to be anytime before 2025, but there you go. Conquest Princess mini expansion. Check it out. Next up, I can't believe words are coming out of my mouth like this, but Gnome Nabbing Grannies. Essentially sort of like a battleship style game where you have this grid of, well, gnomes, and you are going to be grabbing these cards from your opponent's side
based on where their potential gnomes are. And you're going to be using these cards in an action-based system, using 2 of them per turn in order to grab these and try to steal all of the gnomes from your opponent's garden before they can do the same to you. That's pretty much it. It doesn't give you too much of the actual actions. It gives you a little peek here if you want to know what some of these things are going to look like. But it's very light style in that sense. And again, it gives me sort of the Battleship vibe. $14 for shipping as well. So you're going to get a few mild upgrades in terms of Deluxified. So you're going to be talking $50 by the end of the year, hopefully, if that stays true. Does that appeal to you? Do you need to, see anything more from that aspect? There's a few videos that are going to run you through a little bit more of the detail of how to play it. But that's essentially what you're doing in this very light style game. And, again, almost 150% fun at the time of me filming it. So you want to grab some gnomes? Check it out. Next up, you want some Reddit style take that with card play set collection? Well, we have Floriferous for you. And what do I mean by that? Is essentially what you're doing is you have these creature cards and these plant cards, and you're going to be slowly trying to self-determine, but also hiddenly determine what the prestige or the victory points are going to be for certain types of these cards. What you're going to be doing is you're going to be drawing 4 cards into your hand, playing 1, and then passing. And so then as you're, drafting these essentially in that manner, you're going to discard as well to sort of give you new cards in your hand every single time. And along with that card that you're playing, in order to, build your tableau, you are then also putting one of these other cards face down under one of the markets, which are going to be sort of what the prestige or the victory points are going to be for each of these 4 potentially in the game. And so you don't know when these cards are placed face down, though, if it's an upvote or a downvote, right? That's like Reddit, right? And that's what I meant by that comparison. And so at the end of the game, you flip all these over and you determine, well, how many points are each of these worth? Because if you look at the example here, you have ones here that are 4, 3, 2, and -1 based on these cards when they get flipped over. And what you have creature-wise and plant-wise is just going to determine how many times those are worth, and then you just score it up and you're done. So that's it. Light style set collection, a little bit of just blind set collection, if you will, there. And so it's got some nice aesthetic. I'm not surprised it's funded, but it's got $2,600, so check it out. Now let's go back over to Gamefound here, and we'll see what Cookie Champion has in store from us. Another lighter style game from Eagle Griffin, where you're playing over a 4-round situation, slowly crafting recipes using your staff to bake the most goods in order to win. And so you have 4 phases of this game where you are slowly prepping in a simultaneous little play as well, because you're going to be drafting staff, and you're going to have to choose some of your undrafted staff to reutilize on a round by round basis, for a total of 4, choosing them each round, and then 2 that are from the market. And so then of that combination of 6 in your hand, you get to choose 5 of them, and 1 of them is discarded permanently from the game. So you have a lot of mitigation there potentially, depending on how you want to spice things up. After that, you're going to be playing on a turn-by-turn basis 1 of those staff, and those staff are going to have actions, either main actions that are going to be powerful, passive actions, or additional free actions that are going to go along with that. But you'll have different levels or tiers of staff as well. And so like your Master Baker, I'm not going anywhere else with that combination of words or combination of other words to go along with Master, but what you're getting here is essentially also higher level ones that can't do some of the lower level actions, lower level chefs that can't do some of the higher level actions. And so you're going to be forced to have some of both in order to make the most recipes, well, the most beneficial, essentially, if you will. And you're going through and doing that 5 times in a round. And then at the end of the round, you score up your income, rinse and repeat. You do that 4 times in a nutshell, and you can see what you've got here set up as a whole. And again, a little bit lighter game. It says anywhere between 1 to 2.5 hours. That's a big spread. There you go. A little bit of everything there. Cash, prestige points to go along with it. Learn while you play. Draft rulebook is there as well. And symbology, well, very heavy, it looks like, as a whole. So do you have any appeal from that side of things? If you're going to get it on crowdfunding, this is the little extra you're going to get here. The 13 promo cards, 3 special tiles, and the 3 table bonus tiles. I mean, price isn't bad for a lighter game, $49 plus whatever shipping's going to be. So price-wise, it's fine. Now, truth be told on this one, too, every single one of these quotes is a preview quote. So they also kind of, again, skirt the line of opinion, and that's, I guess, what good preview quotes do. I don't know. Preview quotes and you FOMOing, are those 2 things going together? Take that for what you will. Refund policy, easy pay policy, Gamefound, stable, pledge, whatever all goes with that. You know my feelings on some of those extended pay things. If you can't buy it all in one shot, it's probably not something you should be getting in the first place. I don't care if it's 20 or 300. But there you go, Cookie Champion. Next up, we have kCaloria. Now that's with a silent K. They told me it's pronounced like that, folks, because what you're doing here in this game, which is already funded, it's doing a hex-based biome situation where you are slowly gathering your hex bases from your individual deck, if you will, of 60 hexes, laying them out, and then eventually hopefully connecting biomes in order to use other people's to play further and build your engine or score the most victory points at the end when somebody runs out, or, well, human tiles. And so you have tiles that are going to have the requirements on the side of them based on these color of dots. And that's essentially what they have to be touching or adjacent to when you lay them down in the first place. But there's going to be events that will actually mitigate, or there's going to be things like carnivores that will potentially remove tiles after they're getting placed. And if tiles cannot be met after a certain amount of time, then other tiles will subsequently be affected as well, like a real biome. And so that's what they're going for here in a nutshell. Now, it seems like it's a really cool concept here. It gives me like Ark Nova vibes with a hex-based, 7 tiles in your hand, play one of them each round sort of way, if that makes any sense whatsoever here. I mean, I guess the box is collectible too, they say, but that's essentially what you're doing. Based on the cost as well as the yield there, you can slowly earn more income, and they're going to give you points based on how well you basically complete everything along the way. So basically here are your pledge levels. It's kind of strangely tied into a Tabletopia subscription for 3 months, which is kind of weird to me, but apparently getting a copy of this and this is what you need for 2 players, everything a 2-player game needs. And there's an early bird as well, which gets you an extra hollow tile, which I believe is the stretch goals above. If you want to play with 4 players though, you need $75, and so that's expensive. But guess what, you still get 3 months subscription to Tabletopia, so awesome, I guess. And apparently, if you really want to pay $1,000, you'll get a copy of every future release of this for life. Okay, take that for what you will. A couple videos down here, a little bit of stretch goals, and a little bit of add-ons if you really like that sort of thing. I mean, I like the idea of this a lot. I'd love to see what the combo action engine system is a little bit more in detail. And it's an expensive price point as a whole, $50 for a 2-player game. And so that'd be my biggest issue as, a potential backer more than anything else. I think the gameplay actually looks relatively much more interesting than when I was glancing at it the first time around, but that's, it's a pretty penny. So apparently it's also only shipping to North America, just so you guys know. Yeah, there you go. Next up and last up, Isla. And you're doing a roll and write in a different situation where you are taking one of 3 actions on your turn, otherwise you get lost on the island, and once you get lost, you're kind of out. And so either everyone exits the island or everyone gets lost to end the game. And so what you're doing on your turn-by-turn basis, you're either resting, recovering a die, or you're moving and exploring, crossing off places, crossing off items, gathering resources that you may need, or you are researching based off of those resources and the things that you have gathered, where you can research an animal in order to score more points. And you rinse and repeat that with the first player rotating around. If you draw or if you roll any 1s on your turn as the first player, you have to do an event that's going to be bad or something potentially bad that's going to happen on the island. And you just go until, like I said, everyone either can't go or has already left the island to score more points. Because one of the additional ways of scoring is, well, obviously leaving the island and doing it faster than your opponents. You're just doing everything else like I said, right? You're guaranteed only 1 rest in the game to get one of those dies, color of the dies that you have used already back into the availability, because you're going to be slowly checking them off of the colors that you've already used on a turn-by-turn basis in order to, well, just kind of mitigate what you have available to you, because as you're rolling those dice, you all get to choose one from the common pool, and multiple people can choose the same one. So solo play as well, and a few game variants if you want that in addition. The printed version of this is going to cost you £30 though, and £36 if you want the name printed in the rule book. And again, small indie roll and write game. It's got a couple videos there. It's got a little bit more information down below. You can watch a little bit of how to play more in depth, but well, we'll see where it goes. It's 10%. Can I get the rest of the 90? We'll see. That's it. That's the freaking game roundup this week. A little bit of everything. As I said at the beginning of the video, Anne's End, The Descent got delayed. That's going to be on my hotness news video tomorrow, part of the upcoming. I'm smashing those 2 together occasionally this month, or just going forward, we'll see. As well as the upcoming Steam Power in addition. I'm blanking on what else is actually coming out there, and I'm going to talk about tomorrow. So while I'm doing this with you guys, let's just pull it up and check real quick. I think later in the month we'll have a couple others. Stone of Destiny and Everstone are the other ones that are launching tomorrow that are otherwise a little bit bigger of note. So 20th is going to be by far and away the biggest, and then 27th is also going to be pretty big as well, much bigger than the first 2 weeks, the last 2 weeks. So that's everything. Crowdfunding roundup, me telling you my bad opinions and bad takes on things all the time. So that's what you get, and that's all I got. So my kid just turned 10 this week. My kid just turned 10. My oldest just turned 10. Holy decade, Batman. I have been a parent for a decade. That's freaking scary, folks. And he's doing good. And he's having 2 parties. Because my wife was originally like, hey, you're going to get 1 party. It's either going to be a friend's party or it's going to be a family party, right? Well, didn't really stick with that. So he's getting his 1 big friend's party at some place, and then it's costing way too much, an arm and a leg, folks. These places now to have even small kids parties, this is such a money-making racket for them, like ridiculous amounts of money. Get that off my chest there for a second. But then he also has the family party. So we're doing the family party this weekend, just with like, my wife's family. And then the following weekend is when they're doing the friends thing. So he's getting double cake, which is really what the 3-year-old is excited about. So yeah, that's all I got. I mean, 3-year-old's potty training. He's doing pretty good, actually. So I'm pretty proud of him, because by the time we go on vacation, he'll probably be pretty well potty trained. It's freaking fantastic. Not having to take diapers on a vacation, folks. I am so pumped. If you are a parent right now, if you are one of those seldom few that watches my channel as a parent, you know what I'm feeling right now of saying, I don't have to bring diapers anymore when I go someplace else, especially on a trip out of state. Oh, yeah, I'm losing my voice, in case it wasn't also clear. I said at the beginning, but it kind of probably got lost in the shuffle there too. So that's all I got. Have a great day. Stay classy. I already did the shake, nod thing, whatever. That's what you get at the end of the videos, right? It's either people's like favorite part or least favorite part. See ya.